A very good evening and welcome, my friends in Christ, as we come as the St. Michael's Deanery to reflect on the final mark of mission, treasure, as we prepare for this session, which will be led by Father Clive Thomas, rector of St. Ambrose Church. We will stand and we will sing "The Climate is Changing." Of course, singing means you'll be listening to the music being played. Please stand.
Your people face flooding. We see the great waves, storms out there winds. We pray for the poor Lord, raise up. We pray for the animals who cannot defend. We pray for the mountains, forests, and seas. You may breathe. Long taught us its beauty and way. We thank you as well for the children of you who look to the future, speak out the truth. We thank you for leaders, courageous and brave, who know that they should do, who listen to science and work hard for you. It's good you sent us your son. May we love our neighbors. There's work to be done. May we, by your spirit, do all to care for your earth. Critical. May we by your Spirit do all in all.
May we indeed do all in our power to change this critical world. Let us bow our heads to pray. Creator of life, by your word, the earth were formed, and you created upon it every living being, the rivers, mountains, minerals, seas, and forests you have made to sustain our life. Day by day, we look to you to satisfy the needs of every living thing through changing seasons, renewal, and growth. You open wide your hand to give us food in the proper time. As you have given us a Sabbath day of rest to be renewed in your presence, make us mindful of the need to give your earth a Sabbath, a time to allow the land and all creatures to rest from the burden of production. Day by day, because of our demands for excessive comforts, we push the planet beyond its limits. Our demands for growth and our never-ending cycle of production and consumption are exhausting Mother Earth. The forests are leached, the topsoil erodes, the fields fail, the deserts advance, our seas, rivers, and lakes are being polluted, and hurricanes and storms intensify. We have not allowed the earth to rest, nor have we been faithful in working for her renewal. Forgive us those sins and enable us by the power and presence of your Holy Spirit to strive to safeguard the integrity of creation and sustain and renew the life of the earth. This we ask through he who is the Redeemer of the world, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Please be seated. Once again, a very good evening, and I will now remove myself from this space as I invite Father Clive, who is exceptional where this topic comes, climate change, environmental response to what we need to do and treasure the earth. So let's put our hands together as we welcome Father Clive, the rector of St. Ambrose Church.
Thank you so very much, Reverend Elmer, and a good evening to all of you. And as Reverend Elmer said, welcome to our final session of Lenten reflection study on the 5 marks of mission. Tonight in particular, we are dealing with the 5th mark of mission, which is to strive to safeguard the integrity of creation and sustain and renew the life of the earth. A little background before we get into the church's response, believers' response. It is quite evident, quite clear. The science is indisputable that our world is changing in a negative direction. Change is caused by human action fueled by the need for greater protection as we consume more and more. And in this changing world, this changing environment, we encounter various sectors of our society suffering more than others. Obviously, the most vulnerable which would be the poor, children, the women within our society would be the ones that will suffer more because of the negative effects that we have on our society. Now, looking at what is happening as it relates to climate change and its effect on human existence, the question is to be asked, what part does the church have to play? What part does the church have to play as it relates to safeguarding our environment and working to renew and restore a supportive role in terms of that of supporting the various policies of governments and non-governmental organizations? Or do we have a ministerial mandate as church to be involved in creation care? At COP26, the Anglican Consultative Council sent in a voluntary submission. And I want to quote a small part of that submission for you tonight. It said, to respond to the climate crisis, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation. Hearts and minds must shift in order to change the way we see the world and how we relate to it. Those who hold an extractive worldview, one in which we see the world as something to be exploited, and this is prevalent in industrialized countries whose wealth is derived from an economy based on extractive industries such as gas, oil, and mining. The high levels of consumption need to turn away from such a mindset and embrace one of relationship and interconnectedness. An extractive worldview that regards the earth as a commodity that can be used and exploited without regard for the consequences promotes unsustainable ways of living and is causing catastrophic harm and suffering. Words from the Anglican Consultative Council to COP26. Hearts and minds must shift in order to change the way we see the world and relate to it. Then, how do we see the world as a church? How do we see the world as believers? Do we see it as a commodity to be used for our own enjoyment and satisfaction? Or do we see it as part and parcel of God's divine creation that is meant to sustain life from generation to generation? I want us to reflect for a moment on a very familiar passage as we have recorded in our study for today from Genesis chapter 1, verses 26, 28. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image and according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air and over the cattle and over all wild animals on the earth and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So God created mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. Let us make mankind in our image and according to our likeness. It is our understanding that as part of God's creation, we are created in his image and likeness. Therefore, our capacity to love, to forgive, to be merciful, to care are all a reflection of the God that is in us. Our capacity to love, to care, to forgive is not simply a reflection of us, but a reflection of the God that is in us, the God who created us. Because we are made in God's image, we are able to have compassion and mercy and grace and fellowship and friendship. However, as God is all-knowing, we are not. God is ever present, but we are not. So to be created in the image of God means to be like God in some ways, but not in every way. And so we are not omnipresent, nor omnipotent, nor omniscient, yet we still do reflect the image and likeness of God and our capacity to love, to forgive, to be merciful. But what about the rest of creation? We speak highly of ourselves as being created in the image and likeness of God. But what about the rest of creation? In whose image has the rest of creation been created in? I think of a painter, as much as I would not want to consider the earth as art, but I think of a painter. And we look at a most magnificent painting, but the original is not on the canvas. The original is in the mind of the painter. That's the original. What is on the canvas is a copy of that which is in the painter's mind. Therefore, God created the plants, the animals, all that is around us, the sea, the rivers. He created. And one then can come to the conclusion that everything that we see around us as part of creation comes from God's divine imagination, from within him or her, however he prefers to see God, but from God's divine imagination. It therefore means that everything that has been created reflects God, because they come from him, from within him. And so although man has been created in the image and likeness of God as recorded within the scripture and has particular characteristics, that does not mean that the rest of creation does not reflect the image of that which created it. God's creative imagination at work. We look at Romans chapter 1, verses 19 to 20. This is what it says. For what we can know about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. Ever since the creation of the world, his eternal power and divine nature, invisible though they are, have been understood and seen through things he has made. That's what Romans says to us. His eternal power and divine nature, invisible though they are, have been understood and seen through his creation. God's divine nature, God's divine power, seen and understood through that which he has made. Therefore, we can simply say, if that's the case, then God is to be seen in creation. In the floral and fauna. Or you may want to say plants and animals. The rivers, the sea. God is to be seen and found in everything. But then again, a simple question. If there is something to be found in all of creation in which God is not, then is it of God? If we say that God is everywhere and is in all things and does not see him in creation, then what are we actually saying? So, as you and I have been created in the image and likeness of God, so too the rest of creation reflects who God is. We continue with the story of Genesis. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. For a very long time, we have limited our understanding of being fruitful and multiplied to simply that of procreation. Make children, make children, make children. That is a very limited understanding of the words to be found there. Be fruitful and multiply. Let me draw in here the story of the talents. He gave one 5. He gave one 2. He gave the other one 1. And the one that he gave 5 took the 5 and multiplied it. 2 multiplied it. But the 1 buried it. Be fruitful and multiply means to use that which I have given you as God to ensure that creation does not diminish but grow and expand. And that is why we have been given intelligence. That is why we are able to develop different technologies, because we have been given that ability by God to grow and expand. So it is not simply that of making children, but that of growing and developing the earth. In other words, to be co-creators with God. You know, sometimes we say, God is not done with me yet. God is still working. God is not finished with his world as yet. God is still creating and creating and creating and using you and I as partners, as co-creators with him, as he imparts upon us the various knowledge that we need to multiply, to be fruitful, to make use of the gifts and the abilities that he has given us to ensure that creation is sustained, renewed, and expand. Yes. And that is it. That is it. Well, the question is to be asked, if we limit our understanding of being fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, if we limit that to simply procreation, and we just fill the earth with children, what would happen to Mother Earth? What will happen? We already understand the problem of overpopulation in some parts of the world. How overpopulation in some parts of the world is having a negative impact on the society and on the atmosphere, the environment, creation, and as a result, it is coming back and affecting human life even more. So to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth means to use the gifts and abilities that I have given you to make sure that Mother Earth prospers, to make sure that you pass her on from generation to generation in a better state than you have received it. You have received 5, but now time to give an account. You are giving back 10, more than you receive it. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. So, when we engage ourselves in various practices as Christians, because we are reflecting as church, not just the society. So when we as Christians who believe that we have been created in the image and likeness of God, when we as Christians who believe that the earth, that creation reflects the goodness and graciousness of God, when we find ourselves engaged in activities that destroys Mother Earth, what are we saying about our understanding of creation? The purpose of creation, the place of creation. And I'm not just saying the earth, but creation, because creation is much, much more than just the earth. I move on. Very interesting part of Genesis. Have dominion. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, and over all wild animals of the earth, and over every living thing that creeps upon the earth. Have dominion. Have dominion over earth can be translated to rule over, have control over, authority over, management of the earth. It can be said that God made man it can be said that God made man in his image and likeness, that man may be the instruments of God's rule on earth. It can be said that God made man in his own image and likeness, that man can be the instruments of God's rule on earth. So when God said to man, have dominion, God was saying to man, I am giving you my authority to manage my creation. I am giving you my authority over all that there is there, that you would be my hands and my feet, my instruments in caring for my creation and ensuring that my creation is renewed. And so it means that God has placed us as stewards of his creation. God has given us the responsibility to ensure that the earth is not polluted. He has given us the responsibility to ensure that our forests are not destroyed. Our natural resources are not depleted. He has given us that responsibility as managers and stewards on his behalf. So when we as believers, when we as Christians do the things that pollute the earth, I am not going into too much detail in terms of fertilizers and those things, because I expect for us to have some discussion in which those things would come up. And I'm just browsing generally. So when we do the things that proves that we are not being managers, but users, we are not being stewards, but abusers of God's creation, are we fulfilling the ministerial mandate given to us by God? You see, the purpose of using the story from Genesis for this reflection is to show us that it is not simply that of social policy. It is not simply that of supporting government or any organization with creation care. But to show you from our understanding of the beginning of the world, we were given a ministerial mandate by God to care for the earth. And that is why the Anglican Communion, together with others on reflection, have decided that has to be part of the mission of the church and have placed it as the fifth mark of mission. And so we are not simply responding to human pain. I know a lot of political leaders today have fixed their eyes on climate change because of what it is costing them economically and the pain that it is causing their people. But as a church, we are not called simply to respond because of that. As a church, we are given a mandate to care for Mother Earth. So in other words, whether climate is changing or not, it is our mandate to care for Mother Earth, and not to care for Mother Earth because there is change, but to care for Mother Earth in spite of the change. That's the mandate. And that is where we have failed for many years as a church and have seen climate care or environmental care as that being in the purview of governments and non-governmental organizations. And so we go into the questions. And as you'd realize, I did not go too far in depth this evening. Questions for reflection. Do you see and recognize God in every part of his creation? That's the first thing that we have to ask ourselves. Do I see and recognize God in every part of his creation? Yes, even in the storm that destroys, even in the volcano that burns everything in its path. To see God in his creation. Because if you were to tell me that this volcano that burns everything in its path is not of God, then the question is, who is its creator? Whence it came from? Do we have two creators? Or do we have one? So even in those terrible things, do we see God? And if we do see God in creation, in his creation, then how should creation be treated? As a commodity, something to be used, abused, ill-treated, polluted, destroyed? Is that what we do to the beautiful image of God? To that which we see God in? So, do you see God in every part of his creation? I don't want to be the only one talking here tonight, you know. I do not want to be the only one here talking tonight. Anybody has a varying opinion or want to support any? Do you see God in creation? You do. Good. So if we see God in creation, then do we have a spiritual responsibility, a religious responsibility to creation? Mhm. Yes. No, you're right. But at the same time, at the same time, I can ask the question, why did God give animals for food? So you see, yes, despite the fact that we can see God in creation, and though from time to time we may have to take certain measures to safeguard creation, those measures should be to safeguard creation and not destroy creation. So if we have a bug infestation, that bug infestation can lead to a negative impact on creation. So in order to preserve creation, you deal with that infestation. The same way with rodents. If you allow rodents to run wild, you say, well, they're all God's creation and they reflect the image and likeness of God, and you allow them to grow wild, at the end of the day, you are going to be creating health problems and issues for other parts and aspects of God's creation. So you have to hold creation in balance. So we do not indiscriminately kill or indiscriminately destroy. We do it so to create a balance. You're right, sometimes we are indiscriminate in our actions. I come from Grenada, and we have snakes and serpents, and you're going to see one on a tree and it has not done you anything, and you're going to find a way to get it to kill it. It happens. Indiscriminate. Those things happen. But when we do that, we can create an imbalance in our ecosystem. And when we create an imbalance in our ecosystem, we're helping to destroy creation. Yes, Askin?
Good evening, everyone. This has been a philosophical discourse in the context of a mission action plan. We have to move to what will we do about it? What actions we will take as a church. The ones you mentioned, I'd like to pose the one of sargassum seaweed, right? Isn't God working through us in the solution? It's the matter of of pesticides and what. Aren't we co-creators with God as we work out with what knowledge we have, how we deal with this problem? So I want us not to be so philosophical about it, but to deal with actual things. What should the church in Barbados do about a problem with sargassum seaweed?
All right, so that's one aspect of the things that affect us. But as we would have gone on to number four is pointing to the direction in terms of action, right? So the whole idea is getting to that point, because let me put it this way, right? I do not really believe in pointing someone to action without first having the right mindset, because you're going to start to do it and then stop doing it because you have not started to do it on the proper framework of mind as to why am I doing this? What is the reason for me doing this? What is the foundation that I am building that project on? And that is part of the problem that we have. We do not start with a particular theological mindset as to this is who we are, this is what we believe, therefore this is what we are doing. Too often we simply say, let's do, without any belief foundation, and it falls. It absolutely falls. So we must start with the mindset. That's what we have to. That's what we have to say. Be transformed by the renewal of your mind. So if we do not get our people as a church to understand that climate care, that Mother Nature care is a mission given to us by God, it is a Christian response. If we don't get them on board with that and we try to put in a number of programs and activities in place, it will just simply be another program that begins and ends. And that was the whole idea of focusing and reflecting on the 5 marks of mission, to have this discourse so we can bring ourselves to a different way of thinking. As I say, as a man thinketh, so is he. So we need to do that. So I understand the need for action. I understand that need. We need to act, but our action must be guided by a theological understanding. Must.
Hence the case for
Can I ask a question, please? I'm online.
And teaching.
Hello.
Which we have been doing. Teaching. Right? So now be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. How do you see yourself participating in God's continued creative process? In other words, do you see yourself as co-creators with God, instruments of God, being used by God? So, sure.
Thank you for that presentation. Okay, but I want to take a different approach. I don't necessarily want to be roped in to the way the questions are structured on the paper.
No
If you
problem.
see God in here, and yeah, I wanted to make comments based on what you presented.
No problem.
All right. There are a number of things I want to comment on.
Mhm.
I noticed you posed the question and you didn't answer it. The question you asked is, man has been made in the image of God. In whose image are the animals made? We didn't answer that question. You went to the artist and the fact that the thing was in God's mind, and but you still didn't get around to the answer. It would be an interesting answer if you could tell me,
Okay.
in whose image are those animals created? It may not be an easy answer, but you posed the question, so I'm throwing it back at you. You didn't get an answer. Secondly, it was an interesting take, but I thought it was an incomplete statement from the Anglican Consultative Communion to the COP26 conference. They were commenting on if we see the earth as being just extractive, we take out the oil, we take out the precious metals, iron, bauxite, gold, silver, but that is what has sustained the world. We've come from an agricultural beginning. When people started out, all they could do is plant. In fact, Adam was told go out and till the soil. So from time immemorial, agriculture was the first profession, but you can't live without agriculture, you have to eat. But when countries have developed their agriculture to the point where they have surpluses, they then move into manufacture and industry. I mean, I'm sure you're well aware of this. All right, so that when the Consultative Communion criticized the extractive aspect of dealing with the earth, and then to some extent that is true, because what we see today, having been extracting and extracting, we run into climate change because fossil fuels have caused a lot of the problems we have. You see the smoke on the road and dioxin and all sorts of gases. That's true. It did cause trouble. But the world has also been trying to move away by going green, which the communion did not comment on. Wind energy, solar, deforestation that's causing a lot of problems. The world has been trying. So that it's, if my thing would be, if you're going to say, don't look at the world as extractive, which is a natural process coming from agriculture into industry, what you put in its place to sustain people's lives. Because what has been happening in the world is that people have been moving, or people are being produced at what we may call geometric progression, meaning they're moving faster than food is being produced. We've had that problem for years. Food is not keeping up with with how people are being produced. We had over 7 billion. They're not all alive now. So as a result, man has been pushing the frontiers and going into areas where normally they didn't go before. And so we see new things like Ebola virus, and we see other areas, because you're moving into areas where you're taking over the place where those insects live, and so you're going to run into trouble. But they have to provide food for people. They're multiplying too fast. So if the communion is going to say, and I'm harping on that particularly because this is our church, the Anglican Communion is our church, it's our headquarters, I mean, it's our highest organ. If they're going to say that, they have to say, but what do you put in its place? It is not, I don't think it's enough to say relationships and interconnectedness, I think is what you said. That doesn't sustain life. People have to live, people have to eat, I can provide for them. The extractive nature did, along with agriculture. If you throw that out, you got to find a way. So I don't think the communion statement was adequate. I see where they were going because of the fossil fuels and the problems we have today. So I have an issue with that. And when you quoted the statement, I wonder if you thought of it in those ways. But what would be the substitute? Because you didn't comment, you mentioned climate change, but you didn't go into where the world is going.
Yeah, I know. I did not deal with sustainable development.
Precisely.
Yeah,
because green economy is very, even Barbados become a green economy.
I know.
And so I think it was necessary to substitute something, but I don't think the green economy is going to be able to adequately take care of people. What are you going to do with the gold and diamond and bauxite and so on? We're going to have oil for a long time yet. It's going to be around for a while. You think you get rid of all these cars easily? All right. So that, and the final thing I want to say, which is probably more, there are a couple other things, but I don't want to just take over the table. There one other thing, but this for me is personal. And I've been asked this question, I've been asking God this question recently. Man is put here to have dominion over creation. But I am beginning to wonder, and I am asking him this one particular creature that I don't have any dominion over, mosquitoes. Let me tell you, my wife will tell you, I have had serious problems over the last few years. And so I asked myself, the scripture doesn't lie, but everything is here for a season, not these mosquitoes. These are all year. These mosquitoes, I'm being personal, they bite me at home, they bite me in the car, they bite me in church, they bite me at work. So I asked him, am I not supposed to have dominion over these creatures?
Human action.
Human action. Yeah, but it's a fact of life that they wreak havoc in my life. In fact, they're having dominion over me. So I have an issue with these mosquitoes. So I am sure broadly we're supposed to have dominion, yeah, but this one creature here, I am beginning to wonder about it. I'll rest for now.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. All right. In terms of whose image, I thought I would have implied the answer when I spoke of God's divine imagination, right? So I thought I implied the answer. But everything in creation reflects God, the image of God, in God's image. There is no part of creation that does not reflect God's image, right? So to deal with that. Now, in terms of the extractive way of looking at the use of the world, now I quoted a part of the Anglican Consultative Council statement to COP26. It was not the entirety of the statement. However, right, you mentioned that these things are used to sustain human life or the world. But those things are necessary because of human desire. Because before these things came around, human beings used to live and live good. But because human beings developed this desire for more and more and more and more and more, you had to go into these things. And that is what created the problem. So we cannot behave as though there was not life before these things. There were life before these things. And man was living. Right? No. Right? I guess as much those who come after us will call us primitive too. I mean, that's just a cycle of life. So those who come after us, if there is a world of 500 years from now, they will look back at us with all our science and technology and say, look at those primitive people. So we can say that. But the reality is life existed without these things. But because of human need and desire and greed to have more comfort, more this, more that, more the other, then we had to exploit the earth. And the demand for more and more and more. I mean, even within our own little society, you would see that. Within the context of a family of 4, we are not contented to share one vehicle. We want 4. It's as simple as that. We want 4. So it is not sometimes necessarily a need, but a want. And to satisfy that want, we have to exploit Mother Earth to satisfy that want. Now, I do not want to eat all of the vegetables that are provided locally, as we spoke about agriculture. That is extremely healthy for you. I don't want the bananas. I don't want the breadfruit. I don't want the yam. I don't want the sweet potatoes. So manufacture for me macaroni. Manufacture that for me. Exploit Mother Earth so that I can have the macaroni to eat. Exploit Mother Earth so I can have the corned beef, which is no good for me, to eat. Because I do not want the things that has been provided naturally for me to eat. And you talk about the whole idea of feeding the world. But there is enough food in the world to feed the world. If you do research, you would realize that. So it is not about manufacturing to feed the world. What those mega economies do is that they dump stuff instead of giving it to the poor. So corn is dumped every year. Wheat is dumped every year to keep the price at a particular level. I spent a short time training in Salisbury in England, and I had that personal first-hand experience. One of the non-stipendiary priests in that parish owned a big farm. And I spent some time on that farm with him. And he had acres, hundreds of acres of corn. And he said to me, that corn is not for the market. I said, why? He said, the government have paid farmers not to farm a particular percentage of their farm this particular cycle. Because if you farm it and put it on the market, the price is going to be too low. So all of that hundreds of acres of corn was to feed the cattle. That is food that could feed the poor. So it is not as though we don't have enough. It is the greed of the mega economies that keep the poor in the state that they are in. And we are using the excuse of needing this to manufacture to feed, when the reality is we can feed with what we grow. Instead of throwing the corn and throwing the wheat and throwing the barley. Feed the poor, but we don't do that. Because the cost will be too low. Like what OPEC said recently. Yes, we want them to reduce the amount of oil that they draw from Mother Earth. But the reason why they mentioned a little while ago that they're going to do a reduction in their production has nothing to do with Mother Earth. To keep the price up. It is all about the economy, nothing else. To keep the price up. Right? So, hello?
Should the church do both?
That mark of mission against injustice. Yeah. Number one is that's number 4. The church has a responsibility to speak out against injustice and work against injustice. The church has that responsibility as a ministerial mandate given to us by God. We can't be silent, but we have to speak, right? Now, I can't help you with your mosquito problems. Because I have a bad mosquito problems by me as well. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But guess what? All of those neighbors who are not cutting the grass, they have all the old pan and the old buckets with the water. Human action. It's all about human action. Or inaction. That is causing it. Yes, Rev.
the church has for centuries been in the business of saving souls. So how do we move from souls to keeping the earth and looking after the environment? How do we move, because I do not believe that as Christians, we see weed in our yard and throwing away the thing with the mosquitoes. I don't believe we believe that as part of our Christianity. Even though we say cleanliness is next to godliness, how do we move? Because how do we move from saving souls? Because I think that's what Christianity is about.
All right.
To this thing. And interestingly enough, I was having a discussion, or I was being asked a question or something. We are the only animals that have not adapted to our environment. We keep changing things. And I said, I will eject you out of my car. Talk to me about how do we do that?
No, you're right in the sense that when you look at the other animals, they adapt to the environment, but we are always trying to change our environment to fit to us. Typical example. We purchase a piece of land to build a house, and we would have no care or concern as to how the land is sloping. We have an idea in our minds of what our dream house would look like. So we get the bulldozers to just come and cut down everything to make sure that that dream house fit in there no matter what we have to destroy. That's what we do. Instead of looking at the structure of the land and say, how do I build a house to fit in to the topography of the land? We don't do that.
Need to get an architect.
Exactly. Get an architect to look at the topography of the land and to design based on the design of the topography of that. But we don't do that. We change and drive our environment to suit how we want it and have no care concern to the effects on the environment. And guess what? You realize that the house starts cracking and the house starts having problems, and you're wondering why? Is because you built a piece of house on that property that was really not suited for that property. Anyhow, the question that Reverend Umar raised about saving souls. Now, she said that the church is about saving souls. And I would change those words. The church have been focusing on saving souls, but the church is not about saving souls only. If we say that Jesus Christ is our supreme example, because that's one of the first things I normally ask persons. You say that you're a Christian, you say you're a follower of Christ. Well, what does that really mean? Because I would hear persons talk about being Christians, being followers of Christ, and they dress in a fancy suit and a fancy dress and a big Bible and a hat, and they're going to church and they're singing and they're praying and they're bad like sin. So what does it really mean? They don't care about their neighbor. They don't care whether the neighbor eat or sleep or drink. So what is the example as church have we seen from Jesus? We see one who was concerned about man's physical well-being, about man's stomach, about man's health. We see that when his disciples were hungry and they were traveling through the fields, what did they do on the Sabbath? Break ears of corn and eat to satisfy the hunger. The hunger. God was concerned in the form of Jesus, concerned about human need and fulfilling human need. And when those around him was sick, there was no convenient time to come for healing. Healing was, as a matter of fact, the convenient time was any time, even on the Sabbath. He healed. He didn't say, okay, today is the Sabbath. Today is about talking about God. Today is about praying to God. Leave everything else for tomorrow. Today is about souls. No, he healed. He healed. Because he is as concerned about the physical well-being. Now, I have always said to St. Ambrose, there's this song that I don't like. I don't like it. This one about this world is not my home. I'm just a passer through. I hate that song. I hate that song. This is my earthly home. And when my time in this earthly home is over, then I pray to be in the spiritual home wherever it is. But God created me to be part of this world. And that is why I can say, even if I live, yet it is not I who live, but Christ who lives in me. The here and the now. So I would not sit down and want to suffer and pine away and go through hell because I am thinking about heaven coming. No. God is concerned about you now, here. He's concerned, and that is why Jesus said, the least you do unto these brothers and sisters of mine, you do unto me. So as a church, we need to understand it is not about preaching and preaching and preaching. Turn away from your sins, otherwise you're going straight to hell. But it's also about preaching, love your neighbor. And how do you show that you love your neighbor? By doing what? By cutting the grass, by cleaning the drain, by cleaning it may sound funny, but it's real. By cleaning the drain, by ensuring that the pans and pots you have there with the still water that is creating the mosquitoes that just keep biting Dr. Ellis. Make sure that you discard them. No, it is serious. And it is one of the difference between Christians, Muslims, and Jews. It's one of the difference. What's the difference? A Jew religion is his or her way of life. A Muslim's religion is his or her way of life. For the Christian, our religion is Sunday morning in church. A separation, absolute separation from faith and life. And we do not see everything that we're supposed to be involved in secularly as uniting with our faith and being guided by our faith. And that is the problem with us. So we believe that church is about simply saving souls. But it's holistic. And that's where the 5 marks of mission comes in. That's good? You mean about saving souls? And yeah, and that is where the revisioning of the 5 marks of mission comes in. Because if you look at the 5 marks of mission, it looks at every aspect of human existence. And the church understanding that it has a ministerial responsibility. You're not responding because there is a problem. You're not responding because man is suffering. You're responding because you have been given that responsibility by God to care and to do. Anyone else? Anyone else? No one?
Question, sir. I guess you made a reference to Genesis and the creation.
Mm.
And Genesis teaches that the world was created in 7 days. Man was made in the image of God. But man is an entity going through a process of youth, manhood, and old age, and then we die. You made reference to the fact that creation was God's creative imagination that brought everything into being. So when man dies, we have to assume that we go back into God's creative imagination. Similarly, the earth as a living entity, we extract, as man, extract minerals and whatnot from the earth in order to sustain us. But how does the earth as a living entity sustain itself? And when we get natural disasters like earthquakes or what have you, is it probable that the earth as a living entity must also go through a process of evolution where at some point in time, some part of the earth dies in that? Well, I don't know how old the earth is, but the dinosaurs are extinct. Atlantis as a continent no longer exists. Is it probable that the earth may be going through this process of change because we are looking at another day of creation that is coming? So in order for that to happen, there must be change.
Let's say
my question.
Let's say Mother Earth finds a way of fighting back. Now, Old Testament, right? Old Testament. The church in the Old Testament understood what you were talking about there, as you heard in the prayer, Sabbath, giving Mother Earth a Sabbath. If you look at the Old Testament, you realize that throughout the Old Testament, when they spoke of planting and harvesting, they gave the earth a rest. I think it's after every 7 years. Give the earth a rest. After every 7 years, I think it was called the year of Jubilee or something like that. Give the earth a rest. You can't just be extracting and extracting and extracting without giving the earth a chance to be renewed. And sometimes, even here in Barbados, some of the farmers do that. I live in St. Philip, right? And there's quite a few farms around. And this year you're going to see cane growing for probably 2 years. And then after that, the land is left bare for the next 2 years or so to give the earth a chance to be renewed, But if we just keep going and going and going and going, there will be no Sabbath rest for Mother Earth. There will be no renewal, no chance for restoration. And so the whole idea of renewing has not only simply to do with rest, but replenishing. So we cut down trees in one location, we plant back in another. What we take out here, we put back there. That's what we do, right? Now,
We're growing concrete. When I was growing up, I pride myself as I was surrounded by canes. But now all the land is housing, so that earth is resting. How do you respond to that?
No. But you see, the thing is, to use your own analogy with planting concrete, I am sure you would prefer to rest on a comfortable bed and not just bare concrete. The whole idea is this. Now, the earth needs plants and animals to renew itself. The cycle of life, the water table, everything. The movement from oxygen to carbon dioxide to being broken down by the plants to produce oxygen again, all of that cycle. We need plants and animals to do that. And that is one of the reasons why you find in highly industrialized cities, the pollution level is extremely high, because you do not have the amount of plants and those things necessary to absorb the carbon dioxide, digest it as food, and give back out oxygen. That's what our plants do for us. They don't only feed us with food, but they clean the air around us. They clean the environment. So when we want to have some great views and we cut down all the trees because they're barring the view of the sea from our homes, we don't realize that we are affecting the amounts of plants that are wrong for oxygen production. And not just oxygen production, but also it affects our rainfall. It does. When all of the winds come from the east and we have no trees to force elevation for condensation, and it flies straight flat across it passes over Barbados and leaves St. Philip dry. I am dying for some rain in St. Philip right now. Dry. Because we don't have the vegetation and the trees enough to force the wind to elevate, to condense, to come back down as rain. So we do not understand what we are doing to creation when we destroy all of these things because of housing, because of a view, because I don't want trees around me, I prefer concrete. We are affecting our own health. So it's all connected. That's what the environment is, you know. The environment is a network or an ecosystem where every action affects the other. That's what the environment is about. My action affects yours, affects the microorganisms. The microorganisms affect me. One. And that is where the interconnectedness comes from, the interconnectedness. And we cannot believe that we can destroy certain aspects of the environment and it does not come back to haunt us. It's like saying when you're living in a society and some of the children in the society behaving bad, you say, it's not my problem. That's their parents' problem. Their parents don't know how to train them. It's not my problem. And they grow up and they become thieves and break into your own house. But it was not your problem. It becomes our problem in one way or the other. Yes.
Now, good evening. At the center of all you said seems to point to the idea of man living in harmony with the environment. What is the church doing to see if you can get there?
All right. Now, one, and I'm sorry we have not put more teeth to it. And I am not sure how many persons have a copy of it. We started by putting together an environmental policy. So we do have an environmental policy here in the Diocese of Barbados, which I have a copy of. But it goes back to the same thing that I was saying to is Erskine, right? Same thing I was saying to Erskine. Let's do this, let's do that, let's do this without having a foundation on which you're doing it. So we came up with an environmental policy without having a theology behind it, without having a ministerial understanding as to exactly why we have this policy and how that policy will be pushed forward. So we do have a policy, environmental policy, but it's not being pushed because the foundation on which it stands is reactive. Oh, sand, right? It's reactive. Oh, this is happening, that's happening. Let's put a policy in place. No. So this is what we're doing now is important. The education, that's important. The whole idea of trying to get our persons, our people, our members to understand, you know what? This is not about being reactive. This is not about being afraid of what is happening in creation. This is about understanding who we are, what creation is, and what it should mean to us as children of God, and responding as such. So I am responding in terms of my involvement in creation care because I see it as part of my responsibility as responding to God. If we have that understanding, we will be more inclined to participate and support environmental activities, right? So we have a policy in place. Now, also, it's economic, but has an environmental component to it. The photovoltaic, so the solar farms. So the church is getting into solar farms to promote renewable energy. It's going to bring in some income, but yes, it's going to promote renewable energy. What we need to do though is to push that some more in the various parishes. It is actually something that I had mentioned to St. Ambrose quite a long time ago, even before the trustees brought it up. The whole idea that, look, we have St. Ambrose Church there, we have the church hall. Let us put up solar panels on the church and cut out our electrical bill. And when we cut out our electrical bill, we're not just simply saving money, but we are also reducing the need for fuel. The need for fuel. And that is something that various churches can look at, the whole idea of cutting off your electrical bill, reducing the need for fuel, and at the same time, that bringing in a residual income to the parish. So you have an economic part, but you also have the environmental part of it as part of you working and fulfilling part of your mandate in terms of helping to protect the environment, right? Then also, we need to be involved in tree planting. Now, we have what you call the communion forest. It is something that came out of Lambeth, the last Lambeth, and I have had some conference call with the persons in the Anglican Communion Office that is responsible for the communion forest. We're going to be having, hopefully, a meeting with the bishops in the province to push the idea of that, the communion forest, the whole idea of trying to get the church involved in planting trees. Planting trees around our churches, around our properties, encouraging members to plant around their homes, even if we have to partner with any other organizations, but the whole idea of planting. And yes, we talk about food security. So yes, plant things that will ensure that we boost food security, but at the same time, we have to understand that there are a lot of other things, a lot of other plants that our environment needs. For example, there are a number of plants that you would call air purifying plants. I can remember when I was growing up, we used to do a lot of planting, and we used to plant pigeon peas and corn together. We always do that. And if you go to the islands, when you see they plant pigeon peas and corn together in the same stool. And what was the rationale behind that? As the pigeon peas grow, the roots give out nitrogen. Those of you who plant pigeon peas, when you're rooting with the pigeon peas, sometimes you may see some little bulbs on the pigeon peas roots. The pigeon peas roots give out nitrogen. The corn feeds on the nitrogen for the grain growth. So what one produces, the other one feeds on. Symbiotic relationship. So we have to plant food, but we have to plant ornamental plants as well. That is going to be air purifying plants to sustain and renew the face of the earth. So the communion forest is a project of the Anglican Communion that is going to be pushed. Hopefully we're going to be able to start here in this diocese in the not too distant future, after, of course, we would have had the meetings with the bishops and get them on board, because that comes directly from Lambeth. Get them on board and move on with that and encourage our members to plant and plant and plant. I wish I had more place to plant, but if anybody have lands that I can plant, please let me know.
I did say earlier that I thought the discourse was very philosophical, and I mentioned the sargassum seaweed because that's something we know and we're living with and we have to do something about.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Ellis mentioned the mosquitoes. I want to introduce to the discussion the monkeys, right? And I want to put on, as you say, the right mindset. How does God want me to deal with the issue of the monkeys? I'm only saying this to say that we have to move from this esoteric approach to deal with real issues. And you said I jumped to the matter of action. Mm-hmm. And I used to work at the Barbados Investment Development Corporation, and we encourage manufacturing, processing of food. Now, we eat a lot of lamb here in Barbados, which comes from New Zealand. Well, there's a lot of lamb in Barbados from New Zealand, whether we eat it or not.
Imported lamb.
And the point I'm making here now is that we have to look at the world as a whole world and not just little Barbados. Mm-hmm. And so that there will be issues. What is wrong with us planting cane, processing it into sugar, and sending it to England in a response to the creation? So that processing may come out of being co-creators with God. Mm-hmm. I want us to think of the notion of being co-creators with God and using what knowledge we have to help to solve some of the problems in the world.
In a responsible way, yes.
And the matter of the seeking asylum. People having problems in their part of the world and wanting to live in another part of the world and finding that they have to risk their lives in boats and whatnot. Yeah. So these are real issues which are before us, which I think are relevant to the kind of discussion that we're having. Mm-hmm. And what is the response of the church? I mean, how would the church advise Bishop the Prime Minister of England to deal with the asylum problem? Those are the kinds of that's the kind of thinking that I had hoped would come in a discussion like this, and not the very philosophical approach.
No, okay. We must go in stages. as I said, we must go in stages. It's one of the things that we have complained quite a lot over the years in terms of the church, that we discuss doing this and discuss doing that and discuss doing this, and year after year we discuss doing this and doing that, and it is never done. Right? And that has everything to do with the whole idea that we are not on the same page. We are not of the same mindset. We don't move together with one understanding as to this is who we are. This is who we are. And because this is who we are and this is what we believe, this is the direction in which we are going. And the hope is that with sessions like these, we would focus some attention, right? Focus some attention on mindset. Focus some attention on mindset. Because we as a church need to know who we are, what we believe, and why we are going to do the things that we are going to do. We need to have that understanding. So yes, we must have action. We must do things. We must, right? But at the same time, we have to have a mindset with the actions that we're going to be taking. Now, you mentioned the issue of the monkeys, right? Now, there are those who will talk about the whole idea of living with them. And they will have that approach because they look at it simply from the point of view of just don't kill anything. No matter what they do, no matter how they behave, no matter how destructive they are, don't kill anything. And then there are those of the mindset that's gonna say, but you know what? Creation is the balance. Especially when something that is not indigenous, something that has been introduced, creates an imbalance. Because the monkey is not indigenous to Barbados. It was introduced into Barbados. It is not something that is natural to Barbados. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that we have brought in a species that is not indigenous without any care or concern as to how it may affect the ecosystem, how it may interact with the ecosystem. Now, over a period of years, we have seen what is happening. Now we need a balanced approach. So you do not indiscriminately kill or destroy. This is going to get me in trouble right now. But we can do like Grenada or Guyana or Trinidad. Eat the monkey. Eat the monkey. It is a source of meat. I eat monkey. No, it's the truth. And I have eaten monkey since I've been in Barbados. Right? So as I said, it will get me in trouble. No, but the point is we cannot indiscriminately kill them. Because if we indiscriminately kill them, then we're going to be creating another unbalance. So we have to have a proper, balanced approach to whatever we do.
Yes, the monkeys is a problem, but we're not going to get rid of the monkeys that easy. The monkey don't eat anything that is bitter or dirty, so we can't poison them. And the only thing to do is some of my neighbors shoot them. The ones who keep the chicken farms, they shoot them. But now they're all around here. We have them all around here. There's about 10 I see this morning and some new little ones. So the monkey problem ain't going nowhere. We ain't got to invent something that will get rid of them, but not normally. So as you say, the best thing to do is eat them.
Eat them. No, but I would not encourage poisoning them, please. No.
No, but you can't poison them, don't eat
I would
them.
not encourage that. That's barbaric. No. No, so the whole idea is that, good. No. We have the mosquito problems. We take steps to deal with the mosquitoes. We have the rodents. We take steps to deal with the rodents. We have the monkeys. We have to take steps to deal with the monkeys, but we have to do it in a responsible manner. The whole idea is like, whatever we do must not be done with the mindset of destruction. Must not be done with the mindset that I want to destroy you. I want to get rid of you. It must never be done with that mindset. Whatever we do must be done with the mindset is that, you know what? We need to create a balance in society that everything can live and experience life in its fullness, a balance.
I don't want to kill you, so
Well, I will kill you to eat you. No, look, it is the same thing. No, because it is the same thing with our fish stock. It is the same thing with the sea eggs. It is the same thing. Responsible use, responsible harvesting. So we harvest, but at the same time, give them a chance to replenish and then harvest again, because it is a responsible approach to the management of creation, a responsible approach to the management of our environment, and not just indiscriminate use, right? And I know the issue of the monkey has nothing to do with food. The issue of the monkey is because some persons have made us to believe that we came from monkeys. So because some persons made us to believe that we come from monkeys, you're going to say eating monkeys like eating a human, but that's not true. Because is that scientific approach that's in our mind as to the monkey. But I can tell you, it tastes like good mutton. I know, neither do I. Neither do I.
Sorry about that. I'm just saying this is a subjective question which we have to apply in this situation. Where is the balance there?
Right.
You ask me to grow a tree, I grow a mango tree, and then I can't get any of the mangoes because the birds and the monkeys eat them. So I have to create that balance by getting rid of the things that are eating my mangoes.
Or no, so you can create the balance, yes, by getting rid of the things that eat the mangoes, or you can create the balance by saying, you know what, I can pick some of these full and green before you get it, so I can get some. So you get some, I get some. That could be a balance. All right? No, because look, I have to do the same thing. No, I have to do the same thing. Because I have a mango tree home by me. It's flowering now, but for the past couple of years when it was bearing, I had to pick some of the mangoes full and put it inside to ripe, because if I don't do that, then the monkeys will enjoy it before me, because the moment it starts to show a little color, they attack it. So I would create the balance by harvesting some and put it inside so I can get to consume. Part of the problem, right? Part of the problem is that we have invaded the homes and territories of the monkeys. We have invaded them, right? We have been destroying the areas where they would have gone to and enjoy their quiet moment. Okay? Now, yes, we need homes. That's true. But if you drive around Barbados, you will see a lot of housing projects that have been developed. And quite a lot of these houses are still shut up, still closed up. Nobody bought them yet. Still closed up. But that is habitation and vegetation we've destroyed for cash purposes. For cash purposes, right? So yes, the monkey population is increasing, but at the same time, we have gone into their habitat. So they're coming out looking for food. They're coming out looking for food. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening. So part of the balance would be probably to make sure that we leave some place for them and plant up fruit trees in the hills. The same way we're planting trees along the highways. Plant up some mangoes and some akis and some things in the hills and leave it for them. Yes, sir.
Good night. You would have mentioned earlier about the commune planting. Could you elaborate a bit?
The communion forest.
And how can we as a parish get involved?
All right. Well, as I did mention, and thank you for the question, I did mention it is something that came out of Lambeth. And we had some discussion, and communication should have been sent to the House of Bishops here in the province to request discussion with them about implementing that program here in the province. The whole idea of the communion forest is to get dioceses and parishes involved in planting trees or gardens. So we have some land space around the church or around the church hall or around the rectory. We do it as a project where we decide what trees we're going to plant, and probably we have a group or organization maintaining them. If we have a parishioner that have some lands that they're not using, we can, through their permission, plant it up as a garden of fruit trees or those type of things like that, and maintain it as a parish, not taking it over, of course, because it's not our property. But the whole idea is that what we find happening is that there is an indiscriminate amount of deforestation taking place. So person is just cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting, and no one was replanting. So the whole idea is to try and get the church involved in replenishing the plant stock, right? So hopefully you're going to hear more about it, because we're going to take the lead from our bishop, because as I said, we're going to have, hopefully have some meetings with the House of Bishops and with our own bishop, and see how we can implement that as a diocese and as parishes here in Barbados, whether it is with fruit trees, ornamentals, but the whole idea is replenishing the plant stock on the earth.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just have a few comments and maybe a question in here somewhere. In hearing everything that's been said and discussed, like I've come to a conclusion that when the laws of nature, when we operate, outside of the laws of nature, which I believe are God's laws, is where we find our issue. And even in the suggestion just now about, maybe planting a bit more, even eating the monkey, I find as people, we are quite inflexible in our choices, because it's like, this is going to inconvenience me, so I'm not going to do it, even though I can leave this for the next generation to worry about or figure out how to solve. So I just want to just to make that point, maybe if we can be a little more flexible in terms of the solutions that are being offered, and maybe keep a bit more of an open mind to some of those solutions, that maybe we might find something that will help us to operate as a church, as a community, as an ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so very much. Very, very much. Because it goes back to the whole idea that everything that we need to survive can be found here. Now, I will go out in I can't do that right now because the dry is killing me, right? So my plant is in a terrible state right now, but go out, harvest a few pumpkin leaves, harvest a few sweet potato leaves, harvest some parsley, and go inside and make a stir fry. A very healthy stir fry. But no, I will not, because I have to get broccoli that is not grown in Barbados. You grow your own. You grow your own. No, but when we go to the supermarkets, they're imported. They're imported. So, and not only that, we're going to go to the cold storage part of the supermarket and buy those tasteless vegetables already cut up in the bag to do our stir fry when everything that we need to survive is right around us. Breadfruit. I would take the breadfruit and steam it, slice it up, cut up some onion, some garlic butter, and those have some celery, some thyme, and sorted that up in a pan with a nice little sauce and use that on Sunday as part of Sunday lunch. And it is so delicious. So as a gentleman rightly said, part of the problem is we are not flexible. We just have a particular mindset that this is what I want for my comfort. This is my comfort level, and I do not care what it costs. I do not care what it costs the earth. This is what I want. And that is why we need to change our mindset and to understand that everything that we need has been given to. I mean, the beauty of just going outside and cut something and go in the kitchen with it. The beauty of doing that. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Right? So
I think what you're purporting is really and truthfully very valid. But I think what one has to be cognizant of the fact too is that the generation that exists now don't have the luxury of what you would have had. I'm sure you've picked up those things from your grandparents and your parents. Be cognizant of the fact that the generation that now, they don't have that exposure. So therefore, the same very instrument I think that you're using in this fashion, saying that what we should be rooted in, which is education, there's really and truly what we need to do to the generation now. We need to spend the time to educate them on the very things that you see that you can go outside and harvest, because so many of them don't even know that they can be consumed. So I think instead of lashing them, we need to spend some time educating them so they know that these are things that exist for them to utilize. Because I don't think most of the time they are so much that they don't want to inculcate them. I think they're just out of pure ignorance. They don't know, because just check it. There was a time whereby saltfish was seen as, no, I would not consume that. That was for the poor.
Poor man's food. Too expensive.
Too expensive. Now, we can spend the time letting our generation now realize that these are all things at their disposal. This is what they're useful for, and this is what they can gain from them. And I think you will not get them all, but you will get more than you have currently.
It's not their fault. It is not their fault. It is ours. And let me tell you why I say it's not their fault, it is ours. We developed this crazy idea that my children should not have to go through what I went through. This crazy idea. I look at myself and I say to myself, but you ain't that bad. You might just be a little, but not that bad. And if I went through what I went through and I'm the person I am today, then what is so wrong with them going through some of that too? That they can even be probably a little better than I am today. So we are the ones that have indoctrinated our children in that particular way. I grew up eating this, and I grew up eating that, and I grew up eating the other. So my children ain't growing up eating this and eating that and eating the other. So we are the ones that spoil them. We are the ones that led them into that direction. If we had taken the time as our children growing up to teach them the value of food, not simply to satisfy the stomach, but as medicine. Food is medicine, you know. Food is medicine. Food is not just about satisfying the stomach. Your food is your medicine. So when you eat the corned beef and all these preservatives and things like that, you are poisoning yourself. You're poisoning yourself. When you use the natural herbs, I can't remember the last day I used salt in food. Because when you use enough herbs, it tastes good enough. Good enough. Because food is medicine. So if we had taken the time to train our children properly as they grow up, this is who we are, this is what we eat, this is why it's good for you, you would realize that they would have had an appreciation for all of these things now. And that is one of the reasons why we are weak today, incapable of working like our fathers and grandfathers used to work, because they would eat the solid food, the vegetables, the greens, and all we're eating is macaroni pie, full of ketchup, Kentucky and Chifette. That's all we're eating, right? So anyhow, we can't keep going on and on and on and on. But remember, by extension, our food choices has a lot to do with how we will treat our environment. Reverend.
Thank you so much, Father Clive. You have really excited us in terms of all the discussion that we are having. We will not be able to solve our questions. So there is a lot of food for thought that we have to get involved in. So Erskine, you'll be right there getting the answer to what we will do with Sarah.
Yeah.
Before
you close off, just to let you know that the Anglican Communion actually has an environmental committee, right? So the Anglican Communion is actually taking this very serious. We have what we call the Anglican Communion Environmental Network, which is made up of representatives throughout the entirety of the world. And it is highly being pushed by quite a number of the dioceses in Africa. As a matter of fact, in Africa, in the provinces in Africa, they have what you'd call a group called Green Anglicans. And I've been in this discussion with one of the persons from one of these organizations to see how possible we can probably have something like that here. I am the Caribbean representative on the Anglican Communion Environmental Network Steering Committee. That's why you probably hear me making so much noise about the environment. So the Anglican Communion is taking it seriously. A lot of education would be done as it relates to the environment, and the Communion Forest is one of the activities coming out, and we're looking forward to having a lot of different activities working with dioceses and parishes to deal with creation care. Thanks. Sorry to disturb you, Reverend. I just wanted to mention that.
No, you were not disturbing me. I was just so excited that everybody's talking. We're getting really into this topic of knowing that the environment is part of our mandate, it's our mission, and that we are not supposed to be only involved in the business of saving souls, because regardless of if we believe it or not, that's what we think. And that's how we operate. So this new education is something that we need to do. So I was just saying that we're going to have to be wrapping up, and you will give your closing. Was that your closing?
Oh, I'm finished.
Oh, I just want to thank all of you for being part of this evening's session. Those of you in person and those of you online on the Zoom platform, and also in the on the YouTube. So let us stand now and we bow our heads for prayer. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
O merciful Creator, your hand is open wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature. Make us always thankful for your loving providence, and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of your good gifts. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord, who with you and the Holy Spirit lives and reigns, one God forever and ever.
Amen.
Our closing hymn, Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. And now may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all now and forevermore. A very good night. Get home safely. Nathan?